It's that feeling that makes you wanna.
Hi, I'm Detector. Detector here. And I go, wah. So then I'd be like, boop, wah.
Alright, hey guys, Detector here. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. So over the past couple of weeks, I've gotten a few emails and DMs and messages on Facebook and Instagram that are kind of all similar as far as like the subject of the emails and the messages and whatnot, and it kind of got me thinking that I've not really done like a tour of my detecting gear, and I thought this would maybe be a good time to do that. So the gist of the messages that I've been getting lately are kind of like, hey, I'm looking at getting my first metal detector, what do you recommend? Or what was your first metal detector? And so I kind of wanted to put like all of those into one video, and I thought doing a little tour of the machines that I have and maybe some of the machines that I've used, I thought that would be good to put out there. So for those of you that might be new to my channel, when I first started metal detecting, I had no idea what I was doing. I just kind of jumped in like, let's go, this looks super cool. And I just bought my first machine without really doing a whole lot of research. And then my channel kind of grew into like a trying new metal detecting gear, if you will. So once I kind of turned into like a trying new gear channel, I had the opportunity to try out a bunch of different machines from a bunch of different brands across the industry. I've had the great opportunity of working with some amazing vendors and distributors. So as you can probably tell from behind me, this is all of my metal detecting gear, and I wanted to show you the machines that I still have. So part of trying out new detecting gear is some of the manufacturers that I worked with and some of the vendors that I worked with, they would send me machines to try out, and then I would sometimes have to send them back. So the machines and the gear that you see here behind me is not all of the gear that I've gotten to use and gotten to try out. This is maybe half of it, if that, because I have tried out a bunch of machines that I did have to send back. So I'll just do kind of a quick rundown of the machines that are behind me, and if I've found anything like super cool with it, I'll go ahead and tell you that for each machine. So I'll just go ahead and start with my very first metal detector, and that is the Garrett Mark II Sea Hunter. So this is a waterproof machine. It is waterproof to 200 feet deep, and it is actually a PI machine, so it's a pulse induction machine. So this is pretty much used strictly on the beach. You can use it on land. It's just a little bit more, I don't know, maybe cumbersome to use on land, but predominantly you're going to see it at the beach, and divers are going to be using this machine. So this was my first metal detector ever, and I frequently name my metal detectors. This machine I named Beaker because of the sound that it makes. If you ever watched The Muppets, or you know of The Muppets, the Muppet named Beaker sounds exactly like this metal detector. So this is Beaker, my Mark II Sea Hunter, and this was my very first metal detector. And then still kind of in the realm of water metal detectors, over here we have my Excalibur 2. So this is my Minelab Excalibur 2. This one I affectionately named Ringer because this is the machine that I have found predominantly all of my rings with. So this is not a PI machine. This is waterproof to 200 feet deep, just like the Garrett Sea Hunter. The Minelab Excalibur, it does not have the VDI readout. It doesn't have anything like that. This is also the machine that you'll see a lot of people using at the beach, and your divers are going to be using this machine as well. So this is probably my, I don't know, my favorite machine, just because I've found most of all my rings with this machine. This is also the most expensive machine that I have that you can see displayed here. Alright, so switching over to this side, so we'll just start here. So this is the Garrett Ace 400. I got this machine when I was working directly with Garrett. They actually came here to Florida with Relic Recoverist, and I got to try this machine out while they were here, and I was lucky enough to be able to keep this machine. And it is not waterproof, but it works fantastically at the beach. You can get it in the water like the shaft, but you don't want to completely submerge the machine because it is not completely waterproof. So the next machine that I have is the multi-cruiser. So now on the machine it actually says macro. It used to be Nokta macro. I believe now it's just Nokta or Nokta depending on how you pronounce it. So this machine came out when Nokta and Macro were still like the one company. And this one is waterproof. This is waterproof to 10 feet deep. This is obviously an older model, so I don't know that you can still find it out there. Maybe on eBay you might be able to find one. Waterproof to 10 feet deep. This machine actually died on me like a year or two ago, and somebody here local to me reached out and was like, hey, do you mind if I like tinker around with it, see if I can bring it back to life? And he was able to get it working again. If you haven't seen that video, I definitely recommend checking it out, and I'll go ahead and link it in the card up here for you. So the next machine I have is the Garrett AT Max. So this one is waterproof, similar to the multi-cruiser. It is waterproof, and it was kind of Garrett's, I don't know, I guess going into the market with having a slightly less expensive machine, not as expensive as the Sea Hunter, that was waterproof to 10 feet deep, and it handles surprisingly well at the beach, which is kind of hard to find. Well, at least in some of the older machines. I think the technology nowadays is significantly different. But the AT Max, I had a great time using it at the beach, and it's perfect for at the beach or if you want to do some land detecting. So yeah, this is my Garrett AT Max. So the next machine I have is the Fisher F19. This is actually a limited edition because it is pink camo. And let me see if I can show it to you here. So probably you'll be able to see it best on the back side here. Let's see, there you go. You can kind of see it's got like the camo-ness of black and pink mixed in there. So this was the limited edition pink camo F19. So I was contacted by Fisher Labs back in the day, way back in the day, and they wanted to see if I was interested in trying it out, so I tried it out. This is actually the machine that I found. It was a either 35 or 37 Indian head buffalo nickel. I found it with this machine, and I found it maybe 4 inches away from a street sign. So like, here's the street sign post. It was like right here. So the fact that this machine was even able to find it that close to such a large metal object was honestly pretty insane. This is not a waterproof machine. Again, you can get the coil wet, but you cannot completely submerge the upper unit. So the last machine over here on my wall is the Nokta Impact. Again, this came out when it was still Nokta Macro, but I think it was right at the beginning of where they were splitting apart, I guess, if you will. So this is the Impact, again, not a waterproof machine. This one actually you can't go very far up because the way the coil connects to the upper unit, there is a connection inside the shaft of the detector. So you really can just only get the coil wet, and you don't want to get much more of the shaft wet because of that connection inside. So the Impact, again, Nokta asked if I'd be interested in trying it out. Of course I said yes, so I tried it out. This is actually the machine that Detector found a ring and a necklace in our backyard with. So if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend checking it out, because if you've been detecting for a while and you've not really found like that super awesome target, when you see this video, you will become very angry and irate because a newbie, first-time detectorist took out a machine that he knew nothing about and scored 2 banging targets. Like, I still can't believe it, honestly, thinking about it right now. So those are all of my machines on this wall. I do have a couple of handhelds up here that I think you can see. So over here I have the Vibratector. This is completely waterproof to 200 feet deep. It's just a handheld detector. It is a PI detector, so pulse induction. Next to it I have the Nokta Macro Pulse Dive. Again, also PI machine, handheld detector, good to 200 feet deep. And then I have a couple of pinpointers. So this is my Nokta pinpointer. And then I don't even know if they still make this anymore, but this is the land or sea pinpointer. Hopefully it'll focus for you. Let's see. There you go. This is the land or sea pinpointer. This is a pulse induction pinpointer, and this is from the Gold Digger metal detectors. There you go. So yeah, I've got, like I said, just a couple of little handhelds over here. I also have a couple of different coils, coil covers. I've got a handheld scoop here. And I think that's it for this wall over here. Alright, so we'll go ahead and switch to the other wall, which this is kind of the wall that I predominantly have the gear that I'm using like right now or actively using. I keep it on this wall. So the machine that I've been using predominantly lately is my double score. So this is from Nokta. It is waterproof to 10 feet deep, perfect for anyone who's doing like snorkel detecting or just on the beach or even just wading into the water. Great machine. It works beautifully at the beach and at parks and on curb strips, all of that good stuff. The next machine I have next to it is the Garrett Ace Apex. So again, I got this machine when Garrett came down here to Florida and we did some detecting with relic recoveries. It's a nice little machine. It is not completely waterproof, but it seems to do pretty well at the beach. I've got a couple of videos using the Apex at the beach, and it handles very well in the salt water. Very nice machine. Then I have an assortment of digger bags. So I've got my Nokta digger bag. This one I predominantly use when I'm doing land hunting. I do keep my CKG digger tool on it. I've got currently my Nokta AccuPoint pinpointer in here because the last detecting I did was land detecting. And then I have my newest beach bag, which is from Serious Detecting. This is the one that I prefer to take to the beach because it does allow water to drain out of it. So if I'm in the water doing some like snorkel detecting or just wading in the water, this is the bag that I prefer so it doesn't hang on to all of that water. I have my old digger bag here. This is from the Gold Digger metal detectors. This is what I predominantly used at the beach, but it did start falling apart because it is like 10 years old. So I did have to replace it, but I've not gotten rid of it because I'm kind of sentimental. And behind it I have a Garrett digger bag. This is what I used to use to do land detecting. Now I use my Nokta bag. I also have, this is just a Yamaha bag. This is not for detecting, but it's pretty big so it holds extra stuff if I need to. And then above it, I think you can kind of see, let's see here. So on the top I have an assortment of headphones that go to a bunch of these different machines. If I'm going to be using headphones, then I'll grab them down if it needs to be charged, because some of them are electronic, specifically like the macro ones, the Nokta ones, or they both say macro on them, but if I'm going to be using headphones, then I'll bring it down and charge them. But most of these are kind of like the older style, so they don't have to be charged. I've got all of my charging cables over here on this side. And I've got my flashlight. This is a waterproof flashlight that I would use. I've used it on a couple of my videos when I was doing diving and such. And then the last thing, or last piece of gear I have is my Detector carry bag. So I got this bag this year from metaldetector.com. It is perfect for when I'm doing beach hunting because it is somewhat waterproof. So in the time that it takes me to get from the beach back home, the water and sand and stuff that are on my detector and on my scoop stays in the bag instead of getting in the back of my car. So this has come in very, very handy. I use it every time I go beach detecting. I don't use it when I go land detecting because I don't get as dirty or wet as I do when I'm doing beach detecting. So the only other gear that I have that isn't here in my like metal detecting area would be my scoops. So I do have one scoop from Cedo, I have a T-Rex scoop from the Gold Digger metal detectors, and then I have a CKG scoop. All of those I keep in the garage just because it's easier to store them in the garage. I mean, I don't have as much wall space here to store my full-size scoops. I also have a Samson T-Digger that I also keep in the garage. It is, I believe, a 36-inch digger. I've not used it in a very, very long time, but I keep that in the garage as well. So again, I have used a lot more detectors than what you see behind here. I've used detectors from brands that aren't even around anymore. such as White's. I've used White's metal detectors. I've used Tesoro metal detectors. But to kind of loop back around to kind of what brought this video on is probably the number one question I get is, what detector do I recommend for somebody who's just starting out? And that's kind of a hard question to answer just with what do you recommend. I mean, it's going to come down to where are you going to be detecting, what are you wanting to do, what are you looking for, because all of those things kind of play into what detector you should start looking at. So granted, most of these machines here can be used at the beach or on land. There are some, again, like I said, about my Sea Hunter and the Excalibur, while they can be used on land, it's not going to be the ideal machine to use on land. And then same thing for like the Fisher F19 or the Impact, while they can be used at the beach, probably not the best machines to use at the beach. So I think figuring out where you're going to predominantly be metal detecting, what you're wanting to do. So like, okay, you're thinking, I'm going to be detecting at the beach. Okay, great. Are you going to be getting in the water or are you going to be staying on the sand? Because that kind of affects what you're going to be getting too. Again, the multi-cruiser and the double score can go 10 feet deep, but the Fisher F19 can't. So figuring out where you're going to be hunting is kind of important, and then what you're going to be hunting. So let's say you don't live anywhere near the beach and you're like, I want to do some gold prospecting or I want to go looking for nuggets. Okay, great. That's going to determine, like, you should look specifically at gold prospecting machines or nugget hunting machines, because surprisingly, there are those out there. So I think figuring out where you're going to be hunting, what you're wanting to do, and what you're wanting to look for is kind of going to help you determine what machines or what brand you should start looking at. Now, as far as, okay, well, which brand should I get? That one is a little bit harder because now so many brands have machines that are very versatile and you can use in different areas. So you can use one machine at the beach and on land. So I think looking at your price range too is going to be important, because again, I've got machines here that range from maybe $200 or $300 with the Garrett Ace Apex to, I believe it's $1,500 or $1,600 for the Excalibur 2. So figuring out your price range is going to be important. And I'll be honest, there are a lot of new machines on the market that I have not tried. So it's hard for me to give a recommendation about a specific machine, because I do get messages of somebody asking, hey, what do you think about this specific machine, this XYZ from X company? I can't really answer that because I've not tried that machine. So I can really only go off of what I've heard or what I've seen from other content creators in our metal detecting community. So hopefully this video answers the emails and the questions and the messages that I've been getting that, again, are all kind of around the same topic of what machine did you start with or what machine should I start with. Hopefully this kind of gave you a little bit of insight into the machines that I have presently and a little bit into the machines that I have used. Obviously that one's a little bit harder because I can't show it to you here. But if you're looking at certain machines, definitely search through my channel because I've tried a bunch of machines. So if you have any questions about anything that I've covered in the video with the machines specifically, or headphones or gear, or it's just a random question, go ahead and leave them in the comments section down below and I'll do my best to answer all of the questions. So that is it for today's video. If you liked today's video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel yet, please make sure you become one by hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys later.